A Bay Area company has been using personality traits to offer career advice and resolve office conflict for years. Well, now the CEO of San Mateo's advisor team says he can take that same kind of information to predict who might likely win the next presidential election. Kip Parent joining me today with a look at how it works. Good morning and thanks for coming by.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me, Brent.
Let's kind of start with these four basic personality traits that you've identified. You say they're guardian, rational, artisan, and idealist. Can you kind of walk us through, like, what is a guardian exactly?
Sure, let me start out. Personality affects everything, from the way we spend our money, again, to who will be elected president of the United States. So there's the four basic personality types. Idealists, which, by the way, the American public has never elected an idealist president. To the rationals, which are the logical, sort of problem-solving personality. To guardians, which is about 45% of the population, and are the traditional people that uphold institutions, and then the artisans, which are our spontaneous, most fun-loving personality type.
Kind of the creative types. All right, with all of that in mind, let's take a look at some of the top Democratic contenders, and we'll begin with Hillary Clinton, who you say fits under the rational personality type.
Correct.
What do you see in her that makes you believe that?
Hillary is very much a systems thinker. She's very much a problem solver. You saw this at the beginning of her Bill Clinton's administration when she tackled health care. One of the traits of rationals tends to be is that they go after issues, tend to be a little bit less cognizant then of sort of the effect they're having in terms of the way people perceive them. And you see this in Hillary in a lot of things.
Although I noticed that a lot of people are saying she comes across as maybe a little cold and unfriendly, but I know she's trying to work on that. And lately she's changed her demeanor. Does that still change overall who she is then, or not?
No, it really doesn't at all. I mean, Hillary's irrational. I mean, she's going to behave as irrational.
She's going to be irrational.
And in fact, you see this, that people now look at like the Hillary cackle. They think she's calculating. Again, by the way, I'm irrational, and so I feel for her.
So you analyze that. All right, so now her top opponent is probably Barack Obama, according to the polls, and he, again, is another rational.
Yes, he is, but Barack Obama seems to be a little more flexible in the way he's able to sort of manage his personality and the way he comes off in public. So you've seen over the past year of this campaign that Obama, I think, has managed to train himself to behave in a more open, artisan-type fashion.
Now, that brings us to John Edwards, and you say he is an artisan. And talk a little bit about what it is about his personality that sets him apart, makes him different than being a rational.
Okay. Artisans, again, you might call them fun-loving, spontaneous. Artisans live in the moment. They're the most finely attuned to the people around them. So the words you usually hear people describe artisans as would be charismatic or popular, entertaining. And look at Edwards. I mean, he's a trial lawyer, the $400 haircuts. This is a man that definitely knows how to live and is very good at connecting with people.
Now, the interesting thing you say is that the people who win the White House tend to be the artisans, right?
In every case, an artisan has run in the November election, an artisan has won.
And you studied back to, what, about 1900 or so?
So we've looked clear back to 1900. We developed a model that actually has allowed us, in retrospect, to predict the outcome of every election, and we were able to, in fact, predict the 2000 and 2004 elections using that personality model.
So that being said, though, you got to get through the primary to get into the position where an artisan could win the White House, and it may be tough for an artisan to win the primary.
And that's the rub, because personality affects the primaries just as much as the November election, but it's a different dynamic. In the primaries, it's really about who can do a better job of preaching to the choir. And it turns out the Republican...
To the constituents, right.
To the constituents, to the believers. It turns out the Republican Party is largely guardians. So guardian candidates actually do better in the primaries for the Republicans. The Democrats are more heavily weighted towards idealists and rationals, and you see those candidates do very well in the Democratic primaries.
All right, we'll get to more of this. You mentioned the Republicans. We're going to continue this discussion later on in the newscast. We'll take a break, and then we'll stick around later on. We'll have you back if you'll hang out.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about the Republicans, and we'll run through their characteristics.
Great.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit, Kip. In the meantime, in our first half hour, we took a look at the personality types and how they might be used to determine who eventually becomes president. Kip Parent from Advisory Team based in San Mateo joining me again to continue our look. This time we're going to take a look at the Republicans. Thanks again for coming by and sticking around a little bit for us.
My pleasure.
All right, in case people missed it, let's recap real quickly the four personality types: guardian, rational, artisan, and idealist. So let's look at the Republicans now. Let's start off with Rudy Giuliani. Where do you see him?
Okay, Rudy Giuliani is a guardian. Actually, so 3 of the 4 guardians, the 4th, McCain, being an artisan.
Okay.
And Giuliani fits well with the Republican Party, largely Guardian Party.
All right, so then we go on to Mitt Romney. He's also a Guardian. You say, talk again about the personality types that he demonstrates that make you think he's a Guardian.
Okay. So again, Guardians are the people that really create and uphold institutions and traditions in society. So you can see that with the 3 Guardian candidates. They're actually very solid, stable people.
Okay, going on to Fred Thompson. Now you say he's a Guardian too. That kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought with his theatrical and, you know, he left the Senate, he goes into acting, and I thought maybe he'd be an artisan, but you say he's a Guardian.
Yeah, and I think, in fact, I think it surprised the whole Republican Party. I think people had the idea that because he's an actor like Reagan, he would be the new Reagan. And Reagan is the most popular artisan president we've had in my lifetime. But you've heard Thompson described now as dull, right? Not quite in the same league.
All right, now, so artisan being Mr. Personality, Senator John McCain is an artisan?
Yeah, and McCain is actually the secret weapon the Republicans have that they're not going to use, most likely. But again, our model shows that an artisan running in November will win. So the best bet on that side then would be McCain. McCain's unlikely to get the nomination, so then it really comes out to how the other 3 stack up and which one can behave in the most artisan fashion.
Well, and you mentioned that there is a difference. If you get to the nomination and you're running now for the White House, the artisan always wins as far back as you can go.
Always.
The key is getting to that point. McCain's an artisan, but he might not win the primary, might not get into the election.
Not as good at preaching to the Republican base or the choir as the others.
So that being said, who do you see as the candidate having the personality type that would win over the Republican Party for the nomination and the primary?
Well, so the Democrats really should be licking their chops hoping Thompson gets the nomination because he's by far the weakest November candidate. Giuliani's, I think, doing a great job. Okay, he's a Guardian, he fits the base, and he's been able to modify his behavior to be more artisan-like. So it makes him the strongest candidate come November. And I think he wins the nomination.
So if Giuliani gets the nomination, so now you have him, who do you see on the Democratic side?
Well, Hillary is absolutely the best at preaching to the Democratic base, so probably Hillary.
Okay, so then if you put those 2 together and you look at their personality types, of those 2 personalities, Hillary being rational, Giuliani being a Guardian, he's trying to be a little artisan, although she is too, which one do you see winning the presidency then?
He's much more effective at doing it, at pulling it off. So in that matchup in November, I think my money's on Giuliani.
And this is all strictly based on personality now. This is what you would be looking, if you look at kind of your studies and history, what you would think just based on personality, who would win.
That's correct, but the amazing thing is that's what's worked for over 100 years.
And I thought it was interesting you said, as you looked at this throughout history, that the artisans, if they're in the hunt, they always have won? Always?
Always. 5 of our last elected presidents have been artisans. In fact, 2 of them have unseated incumbent presidents.
Well, we'll see what happens then. An interesting look, and we'll just see how this all plays out. Kip Parent, thanks for coming by. Kind of an interesting perspective.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Well,